Welcome back everyone, and welcome to today's lecture. Today we're gonna talk a little bit about loops. So a loop is when you select a part of your code that will loop, that will go around several times. So there are different types of loops in the C language, and we are gonna discuss the easiest form today, which is called the while loop. So let's create a file called while.c, and as usual we begin by adding a comment about the file name, adding our standard input output include, and creating the skeleton, a main function. And we can talk a little bit about these spaces that I add. So you probably have noticed that inside of this main brackets stuff, I always type in my commands with a space in front of it. And that is not necessary for the code to work. In some languages, like the Python language, it is compulsory, but in the C language you can decide if you want them or not. But especially when you're doing things like loops or if statements, we'll discuss if statements later on in this course, but it will be easier to debug your code, to troubleshoot your code. Plus, it's easier to read, it's easier to understand and see what belongs to what, and stuff like that. So usually, when you have one of these open brackets, then you space out one step. And if you have a command here, like if a equals 1, then you space out one more step. So that's just a little parenthesis of information. Okay, so today we are going to talk about loops. Why do you need a loop? Well, sometimes you will have a situation when you will let your code do the same thing all over again, and it's not very necessary or good to repeat your code several times, and sometimes that won't solve the problem either. So let me show you an example of a loop. So the easiest form is while one loops. What this means is that all the commands that we put in here will loop indefinitely. So if I put like printf abc right here, and make it like this, then we save, we will compile, need to spell GCC correctly, and then we run this code. Boom, it will fill our screen with ABCs and keep on doing it forever, or until we crash out of the program using the Control-C key. We can almost always abort and quit our program by doing a Control-C. So you would want to avoid these kinds of loops because they use up a lot of CPU resources of your computer, and they are not very user-friendly either. So you always want to make a loop in such a way that you can break out of it. So something like this. I'll create a message. Do you want to quit? Index. Let's create a variable. And we will set x to 0. And then we do you want to quit? Press 1. Okay. And then we will use scanf to read an integer into the x variable. Okay, so we create a variable called x of the type int. We set it statically to a 0, and then we will ask the user, do you want to quit? Press 1, and read the result into the x variable. Then if we change this 1, which always makes it loop, to while x equals 0. This means as long as this is true, as long as x is 0, we will keep on looping. But if x is anything else than 0, like 1, we will not loop. Okay, let's compile this and run. So if you press 0, it will keep asking the same question. If you don't press anything, okay, if you press 0, it will keep asking. But if you press 1, it exits. So as soon as this statement is not true anymore, we will break out of the loop. But as soon if x remains to be 0, we will keep looping. So this is one way of showing how loops work. It's a little easier to show the rest of the looping related keywords and functions when you have learned the if statements. So we will circle back to these while loops in a couple of lessons. Thanks for watching, and thanks for today.